wisdom and knowledge for a young man. He's years beyond in his knowledge and wisdom. So I'm just excited to hear what Mr. Blake has to share today. So let's just bring up my buddy, Mr. Blake Goad.
Woo! That's the best applause I've gotten all day. A lot of you'll get that later. It's okay. Can we give a round of applause for Josh real quick? We love Josh. He's an amazing servant leader around here, and we were just in North Carolina, where it was crazy. When we were there, it was hotter in North Carolina than it was in Orlando last week. It was crazy. It said it was like 97 in North Carolina. It was like 88 here. I was like, and people are always like, it's so hot in Florida, and I'm like, where do y'all live? I'm like, I think not. Last I checked, 97 is hotter than 88. But we had an amazing time. We missed Sunday so much. Sorry we couldn't be here, but we were out doing a Sunday service in North Carolina, and we had so much fun. But it was not the same without being here, and I'm so proud of it. Can we just give the team a round of applause for holding the fort down? They did an amazing job, and we got amazing reports back on the team doing amazing. And just thank you all for being G5 and showing G5 and making people feel welcome like we always do. But I was trying to think of a joke real quick. Because I always got to start with a joke, right? I mean, it's my signature thing now. So it's like, but I got a funny little cheesy one. How many like cheesy jokes? It's fun. Oh, I like cheesy jokes. I like cheese, but I can't eat it anymore. It's fun. Mozzarella. Junior's starting to get hungry over here. It's fun. Good thing is there's restaurants right down the road, bro. So we're good. But so, what do you call a pony that can't sing? Just a little horse. I need to have like somebody with a drum kit follow me around. That would just be awesome. No, but I was saying, like, what is it? You know, how do you fix a broken pizza? Tomato paste. There we go. I told her what it was earlier. It's okay. No kidding. But we're so excited to be at leadership. Last month, how many of you were at last month's leadership? Yeah, baby. I was there. It was cool. It was awesome. But last night, I kind of threw a curveball in leadership. It was fun. I love giving acrostics. And how many do you all know what acrostics are? Junior loves acrostics. It's awesome. But I love acrostics because it actually helps me learn how to spell the word. It's awesome. But last week, I started a little acrostic about leadership. But I kind of threw a curveball in this acrostic. Because most acrostics, you just, you take the word and you break the word down and you put the letters across and that whole thing. But this week, I'm kind of pulling a dyslexic move. And I'm changing it up. Where the letter is just in the word. I should trademark this. Where the letter is in the word, it's not the beginning of the word. And my mom was probably back there freaking out like, I hope he spelled this correctly. But it's fun. But I'm dyslexic, and dyslexics are awesome. I love dyslexics. But I'm going to give you the 2 points I gave last month, and I'm going to jump into these 2 points for this week, and then I'm going to bring my dad up. Is that cool? Let's do it. So last week, I started talking about the leadership. And at G5, we love leadership. Leadership is one of the biggest things you can be and do. And here at G5, we always say if you're breathing, you're a leader. And I believe we all are breathing, I hope. So, we're all leaders. So last week, the L in leadership I said leadership is influence. And how many of you know the people you hang around, the places you go, the stuff you do all has an influence on you, right? And how many of you can say what you did yesterday has influence on what you're doing today and doing tomorrow? And how you talk to your friends. And how many of you know the people you hang around also influence your decisions? And I love the saying we always say here at G5 is your 5 closest friends you hang with will determine who you become. The 5 closest people you hang with determines who you are. Leadership, influence. And how many of you know, when I was younger and growing up and people, we would go out and do events and stuff and people are always like, oh, I want our kids to hang around you. They're like, because you guys are good influences. And we're like, that's awesome, but we don't want to hang around your kids. Whoo. And it was so weird because, I'm not trying to brag or nothing, but the way Bree and I were raised, we were raised to be leaders from a young age. And we were raised in a different environment. And so we were raised where our level of thinking was so much higher than the kids that we were hanging out with at our age. And so when people would be like, oh, we want you to hang with your kids, or we'd go to an event and we'd see the people's kids that we knew, and we're like, we'll talk to you for a little bit, but it was so hard for us to hang with them because where their mindset was. And where their leadership skills are at. Because, and I'm not trying to brag, but how many of you know when you grow up in an environment that raises the bar on you, it's hard to hang around people that the bar is not raised on them. Guys, that's bigger than you realize. And I, if anybody wrote that down, can you please send that to me later? Because that was good. But say it again. But it's so true. Because how many of you know, like I was saying, the 5 closest people you hang around are so important. And here's the thing that I've realized, and I'm begging people to pass on what they have learned, because I've seen so many people get information but don't share it with other people. But how many of you know there's a way about going and telling people something and sharing something with people? That's 2 different things. Telling and sharing. Influence. So I'm going to go to the next one. The E. I love this because it's throwing everybody off, because usually I would say E and it'd be like, whatever a word starts with E, but this week, the E is teachable. Because the E is the second letter. It's really cool. I thought of it myself. It's kind of fun. A lot of you get that later. But teachable. One of the greatest things that when I was a kid, how many of you loved school growing up? You notice I didn't raise my hand there. That's real. If my teacher was here right now, she'd be like, oh, you loved school, Blake. I'm like, no, I didn't. No, I didn't. But how many of you know, I didn't realize this until I was older, and I loved when my dad told me this. And my dad said, Blake, the point of school is not for you to learn information. The point of school is for you to learn how to learn. Is the point to learn how to learn. And then once I got that mindset in my head, and I got that in me, I realized how much school was important. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying school is great. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in school that's not great, right? But how many of you know the process of learning how to learn from school is very important? I'm a big history buff. And I love, one of the big things I always say is learning from your past but never focusing on it. And how many of you know you can learn from the past to go into the future? And me learning how to learn expanded my mind when I was in school, when we were reading through the history books. And I loved going to Washington and seeing all the cool stuff. It's really cool. But when I was watching it all, it amazed me how people's decisions changed how we all teach other people and influence other people. It's amazing. So I want to encourage you guys to please be teachable and influenceable, but please make sure it's the right stuff influencing and teaching you. That's huge. Like I was saying, we just came off an amazing weekend, and how many of you know that when you go to events to learn, a lot of times you're like, oh, I really don't want to go to this. I really don't want to sit there for 12 hours and learn information. But how many of you know the more you hear something you know, the easier it is for you to share it with people? It's huge. As much as you don't want to do it, the more you show your people that you can lead them, it's going to help, right? So you should cool if I jump on to this week's points. I'm going to do it. I'm excited. How many of you have been watching the Olympics? I love the Olympics. I love the Olympics because how many of you know it happens every 4 years or every 2 years, right? And the biggest thing that I love about the Olympics is it brings everybody together for one time a year, right? And everybody has a passion for their team. USA, let's go, baby. But the next point I want to talk about, I feel like really has to do with like the Olympics and the team sport and just what they've been talking about. And how many of you know you've been following all the different sports? And some of these sports I've been watching, I'm like, I didn't even know they existed. I'm like, what is that? They're throwing a disc? Like, that's, okay, cool. I'm like, I eat off of that. Like, that's a plate. Like, what's going on here? No, but like, it's so cool because I love watching people get passionate about sports that I didn't even know existed. But here's what I realized. It's not that they're passionate about the sport. They're passionate about the people that are doing the sport. They're excited for those people. And the point is community and communication is the A. Now, there's an A in, you know what? Whatever, we'll go with it. There's an A in one of them. It's fun. Hey, I'm making it work. Let's do this. But how many of you know that they communicate their commitment to their family? Gotta love when a dyslexic misspells something. It's fun. But how many of you know that I love watching it's so sad that the families can't be there, but it's so cool watching the families and the videos on the screens when their family or their teammate or their whoever wins the championship or wins that race or makes a goal. They get so fired up that they just scored. They just scored. And how many of you know I love golf. I'm a big golf fan. I love golf. And this year is the second time since 1905 that the golf has been in the Olympics. When I was like, that's weird. I was like, BMX can get in there, but golf can't? That's kind of weird. But like, how many of you know, I loved watching the BMX. Because the BMX, you get on a bike and you're doing tricks and stuff. I was like, if I did that, I would have fallen over and broken my neck. I'm like, that's not fun. But I love watching the coaches communicate and commit to their teams. Because how many of you know, I love watching the coaches. It's so cool because when they win, the coaches are so fired up. But when something goes wrong, you can just see it all over. The coaches are like you can almost see like they're going to be like, this ain't going to be good. Like, it's so cool. But before I came out, I started watching the beach volleyball. And the passion they have to win, the passion they have to commit to each other. And how many of you know it's not about if they win or lose, it's that they committed to each other to support each other to win. Commit. It's so huge. The D, I'm going fast today. Is that cool with y'all? I'm so excited. Did I say I was so excited to be back at leadership? Woo! I love G5 leadership because what's cool about G5 leadership is it goes around the world. It goes out everywhere. This next one is so huge. The D is decisions. Decisions. How many of you know, like I was saying this earlier, is teachable and influenceable. The decisions you make today will influence your tomorrow. The decisions you made yesterday, the decisions you made last year, the decisions you made 20 years ago. Now, I know there's some of us in here that are not 20 yet, but, the decisions you make determine the outcome of your life, right? And that's why I was saying it was so huge. I remember when I was younger, and my parents were always so careful of who I hung out with. And how many of you know the decisions they made eventually helped me with my decisions going into the future? They showed me how to make the right and wrong decision. Now, look, I'm not saying I'm perfect or my family is perfect. We've made bad decisions, trust me. But the decisions that one of the biggest things, I was saying this earlier, is learning from the mistakes you've made can help you change your future. And I love, this is such a huge quote. I love this quote. It simply says, forgiveness does not change what happens in the past, but it can change what happens in the future. The decisions you make. Communicate. Community. How many of you know that camaraderie is one of the biggest things you guys can have in your life? How many of you know when you go to a store or you go to a restaurant or you go to like an event with your friends, how many of you know you don't go to that store for something you can get, but you go because you know somebody that works there and you're excited to see you when you come back? One of my favorite things is going to a place and seeing somebody and them not expecting us to come by and see them, and it changes their whole day. It changes their whole day. Like yesterday, I was at Disney Springs with a friend, and we have a friend that comes to G5, and he works at Disney Springs, and I just sent him a message and said, hey, man, are you working today? I want to come by and say hi. But how many of you know, even though I couldn't go see him because he wasn't working, but that simple text to me reaching out, that decision of me communicating to him and going, hey, bro, I'm thinking about you, what you doing, probably changed the rest of his night. No, again, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but how many of you know taking that one step changed his whole night, but also changed me? Because one of the biggest things I've learned from my parents is it's getting out of myself to be with other people. The decision to care for other people, right? I love this quote that Mother Teresa said, and she said it's so true, and I kind of tweaked it to make it my own. I remember when I tweaked it the first time, and Junior was like, oh, snap, he just corrected Mother Teresa. It's like, I didn't correct it, I just changed it. So Mother Teresa says that some people come into your life as blessings and some people come into your life as lessons. But I believe that there's something different about that. I believe everybody comes into your life as a blessing and everybody comes into your life as a lesson. Because how many of you know, even though that you may not go through a hard time with that person, you can still learn something that you probably would never have thought you were going to learn from that person, even though it was a blessing, right? And those lessons you learn are a blessing, and the blessings you have are a lesson. That's a tongue twister right there. That's fun. But communication, community, and decisions. Decisions. I want to encourage y'all to make sure I know this is going to sound very funny, but to make sure you make the right decisions. Now, I love to eat. G5 likes to eat, right? But how many of you know a lot of us love junk food? Let's go. But how many of you know junk food ain't probably the greatest thing for you to eat? But how many of you know there's a lot of people that love salad? Not me. Woo. Now, if it's the right salad, I'm in. But how many of you know I love my mom, but she's like, did you eat salad today? Not yet. Okay, you better. I'm like, okay, yes, ma'am. But how many of you know her decision to make sure to keep me in line changes how my future's going to go? I may not be wanting to do the right thing, but I'm so grateful I got people in my life that go, Blake, you need to change. I love junk food. Let's go, junk food. Let's go. But how many of you know junk food's okay every once in a while? But not every day. It's not good. Right? And I feel so bad for people who can't control their decisions. Can't control their decisions. So I want to encourage you. I'm going to give you the points one more time really fast. Like Speedy Gonzalez fast. Can we do that? If y'all don't know who Speedy Gonzalez is, go look him up later. It's really cool. But let's go through these one more time. I'm going to bring my dad up because I don't want to waste any more time, but I want to bring him up. So the L is influence. Influence. The E is teachable. Teachable. The A is communicate and community. And the D is decisions. Now, I want to put a challenge out to everybody to try to at least influence one person this week for the better. Influence yourself this week for the better. You know, if you were going to go through McDonald's and be like, you know what, I'm going to go through Chick-fil-A instead. And you think, what's the difference? Well, one's a little healthier than the other. But how many of you know the influence and the decision of you changing that changes your whole mindset? I love Chick-fil-A. I went through Chick-fil-A the other day, and I pulled up, and I had some hat on. I don't remember what I had, and I pulled it, and the guy goes, I love your hat. I'm like, what I got on? Oh, thanks, man. He goes, it was a Star Wars hat, and he goes, did you go to the Star Wars land yet? And it's been open for like 3 years. I'm like, yeah, I've been. And he goes, I'm going next week. Pray for me I don't freak out too much. I said, I got you, bro. I'll be praying for you. But how many of you know just a simple talking to that guy changed his whole day? You wearing something positive changes somebody's whole day. I didn't know Star Wars was positive. I didn't either until that guy was excited to talk about it. But how many of you know what you do during a day matters? What you do during a day matters. What you do during your week matters. I was at CVS last night. Tiffany pulled up, and I heard this yell, "Hey, stranger!" I'm like, who's? Oh, hi. But how many of you know her just saying, "Hey, you," changed my whole afternoon, and she didn't even know it. Just talking to people, smiling, loving. David was telling me about his birthday earlier. He was so excited because it's Minecraft, and I said, "Sure, it's not crying." Something, I don't remember what I said. And he goes, "No, it's Minecraft." I said, "Okay, buddy." But I encourage you all to talk to one person this week and just change their day. Can you do that for me? So, without further ado, I'm going to bring up the man himself. Will you please help me welcome my amazing father, Mr. Tim Goad.
Thank you. I baptize you. That's so awesome. You got me on there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, I'm good. He'll get me here in a second. How are you guys doing? Awesome. It's so good to see you. I hope you are ready to take some notes. In order to have a noteworthy life, you got to take notes. That's right. You only retain about 3% of everything that you hear. And these principles really work. And they really changed my life as a teenager. How many of you know you don't have to be 30 years old to change somebody's life? And so it's on. We'll just turn it up. We'll wait. I'll keep talking on this while you find the button. That'll be beautiful. Will you do me a favor? Will you thank Spencer? He gives his life away. He's running camera. Is that Clint back there? Hey, buddy, how are you? Good to see you. So anyhow, I'll start on this, and you guys, you'll find that, and I'll be hands-free, and it'll be beautiful. Hello. Anyhow, let me ask you a question. Why did you come today? What question are you trying to answer? What is it right now that's before you that you want to reach for, that you're trying to figure out how to do it? When I was 11 years old, Jason, your son's here today. He's 12, right? When I was 11 years old, I'd already decided to be in business for myself. So I started mowing lawns. How many of you know you can make a lot of money mowing lawns? And I love to do lawns better than anybody else around me. Excellence has been a part of my life ever since I was a little boy. I couldn't stand it when people left things undone, unfinished, or they did it half-hearted. I couldn't stand it when I got around people and their attitude really kind of stunk. Pastors are not supposed to say the word suck, but they just sucked. And I would be like, I hate that. They didn't know how to shake hands. They didn't know how to look at you in the eye. They didn't know how to be forward. They were just kind of wussy, kind of pansy, kind of like, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, let's go. Matter of fact, I used to spend hours with my children in the room just teaching them how to look people in the eye and how to shake hands. How many of you know that is the thing that brings money into your pocket when nothing else will? You see, most people think, well, I've got talent. And if I've got talent, I've got everything. And we have a French word for that, and it's called baloney. Because in order for you to really win at life, you've got to be able to get along with them. And how many of you know people are the most rewarding thing in the world, and they're the most burdensome thing in the world? If you run a company right now, if you work with people, how many do you have some people right now that today you needed to adjust them? You just needed to help them see that life is different, that they can be different. And so all of this really has to do with stretching. And last month I started talking about stretching. And I'm amazed in my life. In order for you to have a great life, you need to have 4 things. Can I give these real quick, and then I'm going to talk to you about stretching. Number 1, you have to have great purpose. By the way, you don't have to be 40 years old or 30 years old or 20 years old to have great purpose. You can have great purpose at 5 years old. There's nothing like watching a child who has purpose. They walk differently, they talk differently. They just do different in life. It causes them to just be different. And what I love today is you've joined me, and I know you're different. And you understand, and you're discovering and uncovering your purpose. So powerful. The second thing is you've got to have great principles. Principles. If I sit down with you and ask you, what are the 5 greatest principles in your life right now? What are your 5 greatest principles in marriage? What are your 5 greatest principles in relationships? What are your 5 greatest principles at work? Can I tell you one of the greatest principles in all the world? The greatest management principle in all the world is he or she who is faithful in the little can be trusted with more. Most people want more. They want position, they want power, they want placement. I can still tell you at this stage in my life, I'm still looking for the place to be the most faithful. If you do little things with great heart, you'll always get a promotion, and you will always be the person that succeeds. What is your purpose? What is your principles? You also have to have great strength. You have to have great strength. You've got to be able to stay in the fight. You've got to be able to stay focused. You've got to be able to ignore the pain. You've got to be able to ignore the circumstances to stay focused on your dream. You've got to have great strength to accept the greatness that's in you that no one's ever pointed out. It's big. Most of us, we want to be seen. We just don't want to be noticed. Seriously. We spend our whole lives trying to hide. And every one of you listen to me right now know what it felt like in your life when you were younger, when you had your name called and all of a sudden you felt noticed. And it was like, oh, they're looking, they're watching. Can I give you a great big point today? They're looking and watching when you don't think they are. They really are. So I just want to encourage you in your life, get strength, get power, be able to take something. When I was a little boy, I was always amazed at how many of my friends couldn't take anything. They just were like really, really wimpy. They would just fold. They would get hurt and they'd want to go home. And I'd be like, doggone it, what are you doing? My dad kind of raised me, man. If your arm was kind of like dangling off, go ahead and go to work. I mean, Jason, I feel like your dad was the same way. He was just a big warrior. Can I tell you what's sad, Jason? Here's what's sad. By the third generation, we've already lost the principles and the purpose and the power. That's why you have got to be a chief reminder to those around you is while you're growing, get smart, but more than anything else, grow your character, because your character is what will cause you to be promoted and put in places that other people only dream of. I coach about 50 companies. Believe me, every one of those companies need great people right now. We don't have enough leaders. We don't have enough people that you can count on. Do you know what I'm talking about? How many of y'all want to hire somebody that you can count on about 20% of the time or 50% of the time? Oh, they'll be there. They'll show up 50% of the time. See, you got to stretch in order to be 110%. I know you go, well, nobody can be 110%. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. The fourth thing is you got to have great people around you. You got to have great people around you. It's why parents always say to their children, be careful. Be careful who you hang around. It's why you say to your teenagers, be careful. It's why you ladies that are married, your husbands go out, you're going, be careful. It's why those of you men, you're going, honey, be careful. Be careful down there at the office. Be careful. You got to even be careful when you go to church. How many of you know everybody that goes to church is not as churched as you think they are? Some of the most negative people in the world, some of the most hurting people in the world, I'm not being judgmental, but they hide out in places. It's like why you think if you can send your kids to Christian school, all of a sudden they're protected. No, they're not. Everybody that has troubled teenagers sends them to Christian schools thinking the school is going to fix them. Sorry. And if you're running a company right now and you're recruiting people, you will find out that without telling people who the troublemakers are, the troublemakers can find the troublemakers. In a coliseum of 25,000 people, it's amazing to me how the broken people can find the broken people. Oh, come on. I know I'm talking way up there, but it's all right. So have you ever stretched in your life and somebody around you that you love dearly decided not to? Have you ever grown? I got another question for you. Have you ever thought in your life, well, I know they're not where they need to be, but if I just love them enough, they'll be where they need to be? Can I get a yes in here, or are you just going to kind of look at me? See, it's really, really crazy in life if you're stretching and the people around you are not. Or if the people around you are stretching and you are not. Do you know without stretching, it's hard to even think an accurate thought.
Right.
Matter of fact, you'll walk into any environment and you will try. This is what happens to you that are leading teams. You'll have people that think they know that will come in and try to lower the standard of excellence to their comfortableness so they don't have to stretch. Come on. My name's PT. I think it says it right there, yes. I want to ask you a personal question. Leader, can you clearly define 5 areas in your life right now that you need to grow and you need to stretch? It's complicated because when I need to stretch, I have to risk embarrassment. I have to be willing to be embarrassed. But I would rather be embarrassed than change and not be embarrassed and never change. Sometimes you feel out of control. So you got to be willing to stretch. And I talked to you about this. The rubber band was created to stretch in order to come back together, to hold things together that were falling apart or coming apart. In your life, you've got to be willing to stretch in order to come back together. Can I ask you as a leader, come on, just you and, are you stretching your people right now? Parents, I want to ask you a question. Are you stretching your children, or are you just trying to make them comfortable and happy? By the way, your children were never meant to be your friend. You were meant to be their parent. Leaders, the people you're leading, I know you want them to be your friend, but you've also got to be willing to risk the friendship for a second in order to get them where they need to go. Nobody wins when we're not stretching and reaching our highest performance. Are you willing to grow? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to stretch? Are you willing to do this? It's not comfortable. It hurts. I get it. We're going to talk about it. So I just want to ask you, are you willing to stretch? Are you willing to keep stretching in order to win? Last month we talked about we don't really necessarily like to stretch. My wife and I run every morning, and I got to tell you, I don't like to stretch. I'm watching the Olympics, and I'm watching these runners as they stretch before they run. What are they trying to do? A flexible muscle, a stretched muscle is powerful. A tight muscle is weak. You're weak. I'm weak when I'm not stretching. Are you stretching? I got to ask you, leaders, I got to ask you, parents, are you creating a stretching environment? This is not meant to be like make you feel guilty or shamed or condemnation. This is meant to challenge and inspire. Are you letting yourself get away with things you shouldn't let yourself get away with? Are you willing to not show up on time? Are you willing not to get up and get moving? Are you willing to let go of what matters most to you in your life? I want to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, it's not what you know that will change people's lives. It's what your example does that will change everything. So I want to encourage you. Second thing is we got to be motivated to change. You got to know why. Do you know why? If you don't know why, you won't put up with the pain. And by the way, can I just talk to you leaders for a second? You won't be willing to let people get in a painful situation. I've watched my son, I've watched my daughter, I've watched my wife, and as a man, as a leader, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, it's painful sometimes to watch people stretch. Almost everybody that's listening to me right now that I've known for a while, I've watched you stretch. I've watched you bend over. I've watched you almost get bitter. I've almost watched you get ready to blame other people around you because of the pain that's in your life. And I just want to beg you, don't let the enemy steal your future by allowing those things that I just talked about to enter into your life. The third thing I want to tell you, and this is all fresh information, and by the way, I'm going to go and then here I'm going to give some question time, because if you're growing, if you're stretching, I want to tell you, you got questions. You got questions. Can I tell you, I'm growing right now. I'm growing more than I've ever grown in my life. Matter of fact, I had a guy tell me this weekend, I was just on the road and I was speaking and he goes, doggone it, I think you're getting better. I said, thank you. I've been working at it. It is not time for you or I, no matter how good we are, to think we are where we need to be. It's what we stretch for that's going to make all the difference in the world. I hope you feel my passion as I talk. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Number 3, are you ready? Most of us feel very insecure while we're stretching. We feel very insecure while we're stretching. We feel very vulnerable. I feel very weak. I feel very exposed. Have you ever been there? If you've never been there where you're in the deep end and you don't know how to swim, you'll get there. If you're going to lead, you're probably going to take people where they've never been and where you've never been. Oh, yeah. And so right now, you got to be willing to say, you know what? I'm willing right now to feel weaker than normal. I'm willing to find myself in over my head. I've watched my family. I've watched Blake and Bree especially because they're my children and I love them and I'm so proud of them. But through our lives, I've watched them go into environments that are really not conducive for comfort. I watched my daughter sing on a speaker as I held it in Haiti to 30 orphan children, and she was standing there going, really? I've watched her stand in front of audiences that weren't friendly, and you still have to smile. Can I ask you, just me and you right now, what are you right now unwilling to do because it doesn't feel comfortable? Are you willing to change your thinking? Oh, I'm going to get real in this today, okay? Because can I tell you, you're going to find out about you, and I want you to do some homework on this. Will you do this, leaders? I want you to ask yourself, what is the message of your life? Almost no matter what I talk about, no matter where I talk, people that know me well, Josh, Joe Belanger, I got to tell you, Carlos Wood, all these guys, Junior, some of you guys are getting to know me now. No matter what I talk about, at some point, you know what I'm going to talk about? Family. Because it's at the core of who I am. Team building, leadership, and I believe this with everything inside of me, ladies and gentlemen. I'll get emotional. I can win the world, but if I lose those closest to me, I didn't win. So you winning at home is way more important to me than you living in the workforce and winning in the workforce. And you need to start planning for it right now. You need to decide right now, what am I willing to do in order to feel insecure, in order to move in the future? Can I tell you, I know a lot of leaders so weak that they won't raise the standard of excellence because they're afraid that people around them will not accept them. Parents, can I ask you a question? Where is it right now that you need to up the bar of standard of excellence in your home, in your own life and those around you? By the way, leaders, can I talk to you for a second? This is Tim Goad. I will never demand of others what I am not willing to do myself. A lot of us think, well, if I just get other people doing it, then I won't have to do it. And once again, that French word comes out, baloney. I don't know how to tell you this, except just say it. It's what you do when no one is looking. And it's the moment when you get willing to lower the standard that will cost you your future. It'll cost you everything. So right now, I want to ask you, are you willing to go to the next level? Now, I want to warn you, when you decide to go to the next level, are you with me? Stay with me now. Get ready, because people around you are going to criticize you. They're going to critique you. They're going to compare you. And they're going to try to put you in a box. So I just want to beg you right now, please write it down in capital letters. I beg you. You cannot be afraid to be different. You're not better than anybody, but you can be different. If I could, I would fill our 62-acre ranch with 10-year-olds and beg them, be different. I know what all the kids are watching on social media. I know what everybody else is thinking. I know what everybody else is doing. I know everybody else is dishonoring their parents. I beg you to be different. Leaders, I know what everybody else is doing. I've observed the crowd. I see what the crowd is doing. I want to beg you to be different. I didn't tell you to be better. I begged you to be different. When our children were growing up, and I loved them so much, sometimes they would say to me, Daddy, but my friend is allowed. And I said, I know they are, but you're different. You're different. If we get the chance, if we get the privilege to be different, if we get the chance, that's why I do a men's call once a month, because we have a chance, men, to be different. It's why my wife does a ladies' call, because we've got a chance to be different. But you've got to be willing right now to not be afraid to be different, to love each other, to build, to promote, to build your life, to go out and work, to start early and close down late. Be willing to hang in there and do what it takes. I'm passionate about this because I see right now in the world, there's a spirit of entitlement that's just coming through this nation. And I'm begging you, get rid of it. Because right now you have a chance to make such a difference in this world. So you cannot be afraid to be different, to be criticized, to have people laugh at you, to have people make fun of you. I'm not telling you this is best for you, but I'm telling you in my life, when we started stretching, my wife and I, we made a decision early in our lives that we were going to homeschool our children, not because we were better than everybody else, but because, first of all, we travel all the time and we want our children to be with us. Number two, I wanted to early in their life start training them for their destiny and not let somebody else pour into them something that was not going to matter. I am doing some right now research on Genius. Do you realize that when children, every child, listen, these statistics just rocketed my world this morning. 98% of all children when they're tested are at genius level. And by the time they're adults, less than 3%. Do you know why? Because they have a learned training that they're not smart. You have genius in you. But you've got to be willing to draw it out. So you got to, honestly, you got to be willing to be wrong. You got to be willing to make a mistake. Are you willing to do it? Do you have a dream inside of you? Are you willing to stretch for that dream? And by the way, no matter how much you've succeeded, I don't care if you have $1,000 or $100 million. I don't care if you've got $1 billion in the bank right now. Are you willing to be wrong? Are you willing to say, I made a mistake? 2, are you willing to be right and not be important? You've got to ask yourself this question. Am I willing to be right and not be accepted? Am I willing to be right and not be elevated? You've got to be willing to ask yourself that. And in your life, if you knew you could make a difference, would you be willing to do it even if people laughed at you? Are you willing? I know you are. By the way, heroes always look like zeros at the beginning. But if you'll hang firm, watch what happens into your life. So, can I tell you? People always begin to judge you when you start to stretch. Oh, what do you think you're doing? You think you're better than all of us? And that's where most people lose their dream and they become a conformist. I'm a pastor, so let me just insert something here. Romans 12 says, don't conform to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. What the Word of God seems to be saying is that there's a different level of thinking. You can build your life, you can build your money, you can build your finances, you can build your relationships on a level that this world thinks at, or there seems to be a whole nother level of thinking. I am told that whales in the ocean communicate at a level of frequency at about 42. Now, I don't understand all this. I'm just telling you what I'm told, what I've read. There was a whale that communicated at 52. And that whale spent his life alone because his ears could only pick up 52 and the 42s around him, which was the crowd, which was the mob. Romans 12 says, don't conform to the 42. Listen for the 52. And when you do, your success and your life and your dreams and your visions and your relationships will be at a whole nother level. How many of you know if you're communicating at 52 and everybody's thinking and listening at 42, how many of you know that probably would cause some conflict? Yeah, it does. 4, are you ready? When you're stretching, you need a lot of cheerleading. You need a lot of encouragement. You need a lot of affirmation. Are you with me right now, leaders? Some of you think that if you beat people up, you're going to get a higher performance out of them. And I will just tell you, go read the studies in psychology. When people feel encouraged and appreciated, they perform way higher than they do when they feel unnoticed and unappreciated. So I want to encourage you today. I want to challenge you today to become, as a leader, I want to encourage you to become an encourager. I want to encourage you to become an encourager. I encourage you to become a great cheerleader. I want you to hear me and I want you to write it down. I beg you. You will never criticize and critique people into greatness. You will never compare people into greatness. You can encourage people into greatness. You were made, you were shaped. I hope you're going to the G5 app, and I hope on Tuesday nights you're with me right now, because I'm getting ready to talk about ability in a big way. S-H-A, A stands for ability. Every one of us are honestly just shaped so differently. Right here, you got to learn how to encourage people in their strength instead of putting them down in their weakness. Wow. Not everybody has the same gift as you do. You say, Tim, what is your secret in your life to build the organizations that you're building? What are the secrets of the great leaders that you're with? I'm glad you asked. Thank you. Here's the secret. They get people around them that are stronger and smarter in the areas where they're weaker. But here's what our school system says. Work on the area where you're most weakest and you'll get better. Lie. Get busy working on the area of your strength. If you don't know your strength, let's discover it and uncover it. And it's infinite how strong you can get. And then your value in the team will go through the roof. Pay raises, money, prosperity, blessing, increase, favor will all come into your life in a big, big way. So here's what you've got to learn how to do. You've got to learn how to say, I believe in you. But you've also got to be willing to go to people in the middle of your cheerleading and say, in love, in kindness, in the greatest way you can stay where you are and you can think those thoughts, but you will never grow beyond them. I know they're comfortable, but stretch. See, I watch the leaders all of the time. Do you know what we are, leaders? Please hear me right now. I'm speaking to somebody. We're way too late at the encouragement game. And once somebody else finds another encourager, they found a leader. Because we long for it. We long for affirmation. So what should I do? Let me give you these real quick. Be the first. Be the first to walk in and say you got what it takes. Oh, My whole life around my children, parents, this is just for you, okay? I would listen to what people said to my children, and when they would walk away, I wouldn't get in a fight with them. I would just walk up to my children and say, hey, I heard what they just said to you, and I really appreciate what they said, but let me tell you, you're way more than that. You have this gift, and this gift, and this gift, and this gift. Who do you have in your life right now that sees what you can't see, that challenges you, that almost makes you a little uncomfortable, and sometimes they can even make you mad because they're calling out in you what you can't see in you? So be the first. Are you ready? Number 2, be early. Not only be the first, but be early. That's why it's important for you to get early to wherever you're going. Get there early. Don't show up 20, 30, 40 minutes after everybody else gets there. Get there early, because that's the point where you get to make the greatest difference as a leader. And I watch leaders as they grow. Do you know what they do? They tend to get comfortable and they start to show up later and later and later. I'm challenging you. I'm talking to you. I'm challenging you to get there early. Don't show up late. Plan to show up early. Because when you do, it makes all the difference in the world. Why? You get to love people. You get to encourage people. You get to notice people. I am saying a mouthful right now that most of you are going, oh, yeah. It's going to make all the difference in your promotion. It's going to make all the difference in your prosperity. It's going to make all the difference in your life. Show up early. Write it on your bathroom mirror. My mom used to say, the early bird gets the worm. And I thought I was cute. And I would say, well, I never wanted worms. And boy, now I realize that my mother was way smarter than I thought, because what she was saying to me, are you ready, leaders? I mean this. The early get the opportunity that no one else gets. I beg you. Do it often. That's the next one. The next one is do it immediately. The last one is when they fail, be there. Be there. I have a portion of every day of my life. Every day of my life. My wife will tell you that I text people that are struggling, that are broken, that are bruised, who have failed, who have faltered, who made mistakes that almost seem unrecoverable. And I text them and tell them, hey, your future is so bright. If you really want to be great, if you really want to be great, if you really want to encourage other people, talk about them to other people. I got Tiffany sitting in the front row here. She's an amazing young girl. She's an amazing young lady. And I find myself bragging on Tiffany and Matt when they're not with me. I call my friends and say, you're going to want to know these people. Now, why do I know I can do that? Because they have proven they're trustworthy. I do that for Josh. By the way, I do that for my wife. I do that for my children. I was in a store yesterday and I was bragging on my wife, and I was telling everybody how much I love my wife and how awesome my wife is. And today I got the chance, after I went to a doctor's appointment, to take her in, and I watched how everybody came up and they felt like they already knew her and they were already treating her. Whoa, leaders, you better listen to me. Leaders get there early and they start preparing the culture. How people think and how they feel. Talk to other people, their fear, their friends, their families. Tell them how important they are and watch what happens. Can you take one more, or do you want me to quit?
One more.
One more? Okay, that was one guy that said one more, so I'm gonna do it, all right? So are you ready for number 5? A lot of people never learn that stretching is not a destination. It's a journey. In your life, we must learn. This is the most critical thing I'm going to say today. We must learn today that life and success is about continual stretching and reaching, not every now and then. Next month, I'm going to talk to you, how do you know that you're in a stretching environment? When you stop stretching, you stop growing, and I'm going to say something that you're going to want to argue with me, and it's okay. You stop living. You stop living. You start to go backwards. We become boring. We become bitter. We become not useful. We become frustrated. We become disillusioned. And we become negative. And we start judging. You're going to have to go to the app and you're going to have to get that list. I know you are because I went through fast. So around you right now, can I ask you, the people in your life, the 5 closest people, are they just looking for a good time or are they looking for new dreams? Are they looking for the simple and the easy? Are they looking for the party? Are they looking for the potential? You will become what those 5 closest people around you, even if you've got an incredible gift. Do you know around the world right now, you're seeing athletes at the Olympics, and I close, there are people at home that are faster, but they had friends. When I talk to teenagers, I ask them this question, hey, tell me about pain in your life. I'm not talking about the good pain of stretching. I'm talking about the pain of giving up, of surrendering, of not achieving, of not becoming. Some of you know what I'm talking about right now. I need to talk to you next month about this. What do you do if the people in your life don't see the greatness that's in you and they try to put you down and steal your dream from you? You got to be mentally tough. And your dream has got to matter because, listen to me, this is critical. Your breakthrough is going to be their breakthrough. But if you give up, they lose their chance. Right now, there are people in this world that are probably wiser and smarter and better, but they will not stretch. I think the greatest joy in life is doing life and being on a mission with other people you love. I believe that. I think the most boring thing in this world is to reach a level of success where you're no longer stretching and you're no longer challenged and you're no longer in the game and you're just kind of ho-hum going along, but you're bored. And I want you to know, just so you know, you were never made to live in that condition. You were made for adventure. You were made for new adventure. You were made for the impossible. You were made to reach, and that's why you're hungry and you're coming in. That's why you're on this call. I'm telling you about the world that's outside of you. So today, here's what I encourage you. So many people feel like they've already arrived, and they feel like they already know it all. And they feel so certain of their position. I want to encourage you to be willing to stretch and grow and watch what happens in your life. Next month we'll be after this again, Charge.